little bit of equity. So I lived on that for the first year, and I just had a blast. It's you're playing, you're just playing on stage. That's why this was so much fun, and it really taught me some great life skills as well. And I started a storytelling show, and I taught storytelling at the famed Second City here in the United States. And I really loved listening to people's stories and how they told their stories. And they were either the villain or the victim or the hero. And I got really fascinated about how we tell our stories
There is something
because that,
magic about that, isn't there?
yeah.
And so the stand up led into you doing a live spoken word performance about storytelling. Is that correct?
Yeah, I created and hosted two really popular storytelling shows in Chicago and taught storytelling for performance. And then after about 11 years in Chicago, I realized I don't like the cold and I didn't want to live there anymore. So I moved to Los Angeles and I went on one audition and I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. And so I dove deep into leadership development and speaking. I became a coach and then I started teaching coaches. And I recognized that people were coming to me all the time with their stories of like, oh, I can't do that, or that's impossible, or I'm too old for this, or I'm too young for this. And I really got fascinated by the limitations of our stories that we tell ourselves. And I started looking at the kinds of stories that we tell ourselves. And I came up with the idea that we tell ourselves three different kinds of stories. We tell ourselves the first one is like the historical reenactments or the historical reactions. And those are often our core wound stories. We're not even always aware of those stories, but they drive our behaviors, whether we know it or not. Those are the stories like I'm unlovable or I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. And then we have the TV unscripted reality stories. And those are the stories in the moment that we flash up and they create emotional reactions for us that we don't necessarily want to be in. But we can, the best ones are when we're in our car and someone cuts us off. And we're like, that guy's a jerk. What an idiot. Da, 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 right. And in the moment, it's like we're being produced by an unscripted reality producer. They want all the emotions that come out of us. And then our third kind of stories are the dystopian futures or the lack of a future story. And those future stories are the ones that can really move us into the direction that we want to go. But oftentimes we have no idea how to create a really flourishing future type of story. And that's how I work with my clients.
Awesome. And what are some of the your stories that you've rewritten about yourself?
Oh gosh. I mean, I'll go deep with you. Like my deepest one was I'm a burden. And that comes from I grew up in kind of a dysfunctional home. But I was adopted. And these core wounded stories are often given to us or created for us, or we create at our youngest of age, when our times when we can't process what the world is really about. But because we're at that age, we make these experiences mean something about who we are. And so for some reason, I'm adopted. You think that a child doesn't have any real sentient or sense, right? But I could recognize that even that energy of being born and not being wanted, and then staying in in a children's home for several weeks and not being picked up